Welcome to the first in a series of very special reviews taking a look at every single Super FX game for the Super Nintendo. And of course, the logical place to start would be with the very first game to use the Super FX chip, Starfox. Starfox's existence is a very interesting one. A Nintendo published release that shared development duties with a small British development house, the game simply wouldn't have been possible had co-developers Argonaut Software not had the balls to request that Nintendo help fund development of a means to improve upon the Super Nintendo's 3D capabilities. The results of this endeavour, the Super FX chip, is a substantial amount of Star Fox's legacy. And while that expansion chip was placed at the front and centre of Star Fox's marketing, this is a game that deserves to be considered as more than just a tech demo for an impressive 16-bit 3D graphics solution. If you were to strip the polygonal visuals away and just replace them with standard sprites, you'd arguably end up with the same experience, that being a very solid shoot 'em up with a unique viewing perspective. As for the narrative, it's a simple space opera, revolving around the fictional Lilac system during a time of war. The mad scientist Andros has taken it upon himself to put together an army to take on the entire galaxy, and so the forces of the planet Corneria counter with the deployment of Starfox, a team of mercenaries headed by ace R-Wing pilot Fox McCloud. Joined by veteran Starfox member Peppy Hare, team engineer Slippy Toad and the hot-headed Falco Lombardi, the team are on a critical mission to fight back and rid each of the Lilac system's planets of the Andros threat. This isn't one of those games that features a ton of cutscenes. On the contrary, the events of the game are dictated through introductory text before each level, and the in-game chatter text between your team and occasionally the enemy to the sound of what can only be described as indecipherable ribbiting. Somehow these vocalisations are more strange and charming than irritating, and while each character isn't as fleshed out as they are in Starfox 64, there's a good sense here that you're part of a team, especially in the moments where you see their R-Wing swoop in to take down an enemy or retreat from one. Starfox is a mostly linear experience, although you are given the choice of 3 different paths that act as difficulty levels and take you through an entirely different set of planets from Corneria all the way to Venom and the game's climax. And while there are a couple of hidden levels that offer a couple of warps to other difficulty paths, there's not a great deal of openness to the game's structure, something that will be implemented in later Starfox releases. Going to this game proper, and it's an impressive sight to see what was possible on the Super Nintendo thanks to a cartridge-based enhancement chip. What we see as primitive untextured polygons now were an absolute revelation in 1993, and something that rival consoles could only achieve through expensive add-on hardware for the most part. However, as impressive as these 3-dimensional visuals were back then, that level of graphics came at a severe cost to the game's frame rate. The stuttery and inconsistent animation doesn't make Starfox unplayable, but it is a noticeable issue that isn't limited to this game, but rather most Super FX enhanced releases in general. However, for a game like this that relies on the occasional quick manoeuvres, the jerkiness can lead to some rather frustrating moments at times. As for the other issues, it does feel sometimes like the collision detection is a little off, as I regularly found myself missing enemies with laser fire that I swear I got with a direct hit, and some really irritating occurrences where I was trying to collect power-ups and other items, clearly making contact with them, but the game not registering that I had picked them up. Thankfully these issues weren't common enough to spoil the game for me, but when it does happen it is pretty frustrating. None of these minor issues take away from the aesthetics of Starfox's ships or environments. The R-Wing vehicle itself is a simple, great design that has endured over the past 2 decades for good reason. And while most of the game's cannon fodder are mostly forgettable clusters of polygons, some of the bosses encountered throughout are cleverly designed and make the most of the polygonal visuals. One particular highlight is a boss that involves flying into a rotating cylindrical room while trying to dodge and destroy wall-mounted laser beams. In terms of action, Starfox truly brings the sense you're taking part in a galactic war. Even with your flight path limited to being on rails, there is so much going on in each level that you're always kept in a state of alert, ready to await enemy ambushes, deadly environmental hazards and incredible bursts of acceleration in the most dangerous of areas. It's down to the player to master the manoeuvrability of the R-Wing craft, making the most of barrel rolls and banking left or right to avoid obstacles, all while focusing firepower on whatever enemy is in the way. And while this is far from being the most chaotic shooter out there, the pace is hectic without being overwhelming. In terms of the game's pacing, I can't fault it either in terms of difficulty or the action. And while there isn't much freedom in terms of level progression, its 3 difficulty paths offer a nice range of experiences for most players' abilities, although even the easiest path is challenging enough. With each path taking around an hour to finish, on paper it sounds like a pretty short game, but that's really far from the truth. The harder routes are really tough and get tougher. With limited lives and continues, like any shooter, it's going to take most players more than a few attempts to commit each level to memory and progress without losing too many lives. It's action-packed, full of character, and the different routes encourage multiple replays but without the repetition. The visuals haven't aged very well, and the jerky frame rate is much more noticeable now than it was back in 1993. While it's been bettered exponentially by Starfox 64 and other Starfox releases, the debut adventure of Fox McCloud's Squadron still has plenty going for it, and even after all this time, it's certainly worth coming back to.